Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. As all eyes and ears are aimed at the general budget scheduled for tomorrow, the economic survey released today provides some rosy picture for the economy. Predicting over 8% growth in the coming fiscal year, the survey suggests that Indian economy is in the path of recovery. Admitting that despite the impressive growth figures, India is still not a surging economy, it expresses satisfaction at the current account deficit situation as well as inflation. It also sets forth many challenges facing the economy, including the stagnation in manufacturing exports and services, apart from the investment challenges. However, the survey displays optimism when it declares that macroeconomic fundamentals have dramatically improved in 2014-15. However, it expresses concerns about burgeoning subsidies, which it says is 4.2% of the GDP of 2011-12, apart from double financial repression in the Indian banking sector. The survey makes a strong push for big bang reforms, which it hopes would propel India into a double-digit growth. We will today discuss all this and also what we can expect the finance minister to be taking from the survey when he presents his budget tomorrow. To discuss this, I have with me Dr. Santosh Mehrotra, Professor of Economics, Center for Informal Sector and Labour Studies at the JNU, Devendra Sharma, Economist and Food Analyst, Professor N.R. Bhanumurthy, Member, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, and R. Srinivasan, Senior Associate Editor, The Hindu Businessline. Welcome to all of you. Bhanu, I would like to come to you first. What is the economic survey trying to tell the government?
Yeah. Well, I think the economic survey, to be frank, it's a very long economic survey. It took a long time to read even the first chapter of the economic survey. It does provide a very rosy picture about Indian economy for the current year as well as for the next year. As you rightly point out, the growth projections that are made from 8.1 to 8.5% is itself a very, very rosy forecast. And you have seen the stock markets reacting to this kind of growth numbers. And at the same time, the theme of the report, which is creating opportunity and reducing vulnerability, I think this is the crux of the whole Indian economy at the moment, where we are trying to enhance growth, at the same time increase the employment opportunities, and at the same time reduce the risks for achieving such growth in the medium to long term. So overall, it does make a lot of points, but I must say that it needs a lot more, analytical rigor to see whether all these recommendations can work for India.
Okay. Santosh, apart from what Bhanu is saying, I'm sure would you agree with him, what he's saying on most of the things which he said? Because I want you to also address the other thing, because the other claim which the economic survey makes, a very important claim. It says that the macroeconomic fundamentals have dramatically improved in 2014-15.
Absolutely correct. And there's no question about that. Inflation is down. The current account deficit is down. These are very important facts that have to be taken on board, and we've managed to contain the fiscal deficit. And above all, commodity prices have been declining. So these are all situations which are creating an environment. And above all, finally, in a sense, we now finally, after 10 years, have a government which has an absolute majority on its own in the Lok Sabha. So the possibility of carrying out reforms is greater, though there are constraints.
No, we'll come to the reforms and these big bang reforms which they're talking about.
Right.
But you feel that the macroeconomic fundamentals are fine. Srinivasan, would you agree with that?
Have improved.
I would think that there are 2 or 3 takeaways for the finance minister from the survey numbers. One, let's leave aside 8% for the moment. I think there are some issues with that.
8.8 is actually 8.1 to 8.5%.
8.5%. I think the takeaway is that the growth momentum has started to pick up. Let's sort of come to the by how much a little later. I think the second takeaway is that this also captures certain areas of concern which he needs to focus on. The 2 big areas for me are still the relatively very modest growth in manufacturing output, which clearly needs some policy intervention, and hopefully that would happen or should happen in the budget. The second is the sharp decline forecast in agricultural output,
right?
Which again requires now policy intervention.
Does it actually say that there's going to be a sharp decline in agricultural output?
Yes, I think
talking
from
of the 4% growth, remaining stagnant. It doesn't seem to.
Though for the coming year, I think it is pretty. It forecast about 1.7%. So it is a decline for the coming year because the monsoon is but predicted to be normal or subnormal, and this is the expectation. So that agriculture still has a big role to play in our economy, particularly in momentum changes.
Right.
When you want a momentum change and you want to uptick from sort of stagnation into high growth, you need a push from agriculture. And that seems to be the survey saying that there is a problem there. For the coming year.
For the coming year. Devendra Sharma, would you agree with the survey as far as the agriculture growth figures which they're talking about?
Well, I think for a country which is obsessed with growth figures, this will be, sounding a little alarmist. But I think more important than the growth figures is what happens to the farming community at large. Whether their income goes up or not. I think that's a bigger problem than the growth figures. Now, coming to the growth figures again, this economic survey does paint a rosy figure at, telling us that it will be more than 8 in the coming years. But I think, this has little meaning now. If you look at the way we have played with numbers to raise our GDP from 4.7 to 7.4 this year, I think it makes no sense. And we joined the groups like Nigeria, countries like Nigeria and Ghana. Nigeria had revised its GDP by 90%. And Ghana has revised its GDP by 60%. We have revised our GDP by 50%. So I think we are trying to play with numbers because this is a kind of a report card for the government. The nation has to be convinced that our GDP is going up, so therefore we are doing very well. Now, I don't think situation has changed between a year earlier and a year now. And that, I think, is something which I am worried about, although economists will talk about those figures that, they think are phenomenal. Why 8? Why stop at 8? You could have even said 10, you'll have 10 GDP in the years to come.
They are talking of 10%. They are talking of
getting away from...
Devendra, actually, they are talking of double-digit growth.
There's something wrong with the audio.
No, I am saying that they are actually talking about a double-digit growth.
Yeah, but at a time when China is trying to reduce its GDP numbers because it feels that it is not useful. So look at India. India is trying to give a projection that we'll have 10. What are we doing? Will that help to create jobs? I don't think so. I think the economists have to really relook at the entire phenomena of growth. It is not going to create jobs. We have seen in the past 10 years, it has not created jobs. Even the GDP, when it was higher, in the first 4 years of 2004, 2005 to 2009, 9.3 GDP, and only, there was job loss growth, as we know. Agriculture, manufacturing, both suffered. So what kind of impression or enthusiasm we get from growth figures? I think more important is we create jobs, and I think that number I would like to see what kind of growth we have created, what kind of job growth we have created, what is the kind of effort to remove people out of the poverty, hunger, social spending on health, and so on and so forth.
Okay, but Devendra, but do you generally agree with the survey which says that there is going to be, as far as the agricultural growth is concerned, it's going to come down to 1.7%. I was just looking at the food grain production figures which the economic survey talks of. In the economic survey, it's saying that the food grain production may come down to 257.1 million tons. This in 2014-15. It has come down from 265. So you think these are all areas of concern? What do you expect the government to do on this?
No, I think let's be very clear. We had a shortfall in monsoon, and I think despite the shortfall, I think the farmers have done remarkably well to produce 257 million tons of food grains. Now, I'm not worried about the growth percentage because it's something which is really questionable. Because next year you will see, let us say the production goes up from 257 to 260, there will be a jump in in growth in agriculture, although it will be less than that production achieved a year back. So I think these figures are completely illusionary, doesn't convey anything. I'm more concerned about what happens to the farmers, their economy, their economic status, because today the farmer average income of a farming family is about 3,000 rupees from farming itself. Now, if that I'm talking of the monthly income. Now, if that's the state of affairs of agriculture, why are we worried about growth? We should be worried about what happens to the farmer's income. 3,000 rupees is no income. We should be ashamed of that.
Okay, Bhanumurthy, coming down to this, to the figures actually, Devendra Sharma says, and many, I'm sure many agree with him also that we are all obsessed with the growth figures, GDP figures, but still that is something which is seems to be unavoidable. 8.5%, 8.1 to 8.5%. You think that is something which is achievable, or you think the economic survey is being a little too optimistic?
No, I think if you look at the economic survey, most of the indicators show that the recovery has started even from 2012-13 onwards. So overall, there is a momentum. There is, picking up in the GDP numbers. I will not be surprised at the growth going up from 7.4 in the current year to 8.1 to 8.5%, given the kind of momentum at the moment we have. But having said that, as I said, in fact, in your shows also I have emphasized in the past, that growth without employment generation is something that we are not
absolutely.
Really
I think
I completely agree with Mr. Sharma.
Right. I'm glad you. Yeah. In fact, let me get Santosh in on this. It is his.
But that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons.
Okay. Finish it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the current government seems to focus more on Make in India initiative, largely focusing on the manufacturing sector. I'm sure Professor Mehrotra will add to this issue, where increasing share of manufacturing sector would lead to higher employment opportunities in the country.
Okay, Santosh. See, both of them rightly are focusing on, there's no point talking of growth if there's no jobs. And from what the survey says, it has not been a very rosy picture at all in the last several years.
Well, I wouldn't say that the economic survey is saying that the picture has not been rosy. If anything, all that it is saying is that it cites various sources of data.
I'll read
I know.
I'll read one sentence.
You go ahead.
Regardless of which data source is used, it seems clear that employment growth is lagging behind growth in the labor force. For example, and then it goes on.
Correct. I think what has to be remembered is that there are two challenges here. One, there is a rise in the numbers, the youth who are joining the labor force. The other is that since 2004-05, people are leaving agriculture for non-agricultural work. Now, those who are leaving agriculture for non-agricultural work, and it's partly driven by distress, but it's partly driven by the opportunities created in non-agricultural work. No question about it that construction work has been booming, and that's why that's one of the main reasons why people are leaving agriculture. So most of the growth in employment outside of agriculture has taken place in construction. There has been some growth in manufacturing employment as well, but not between 2005 and 2010. Since 2010, there has been a growth in manufacturing employment. So, one could have used the phrase jobless growth for the period 2005 to 2010. Since 2010, you cannot use that word because it doesn't correspond to reality. Now, in other words, when the economic survey talks about a decline in the 2000s of the employment elasticity of output relative to the 1990s, it is obviously factoring in the 2005 to 10 figure. But when you include the period since then, the employment elasticity of output has actually grown. And we need to focus our attention in Make in India, in both manufacturing and in services, upon that. And it is possible to do that because demand has been growing in the rural areas from the new non-poor since 2004-05 because 140 million people came out of poverty.
No, that's fine.
I mean, there's distress in agriculture, no question about it. I agree with Devendra. But the fact remains that employment outside of agriculture has also been growing at a rate nearly commensurate with the growth in the labor force.
Okay. Srinivasan, labor, he's being a little more optimistic of the last few years as far as the employment growth is concerned. Now, employment growth, he's talking of manufacturing sector. That's where the employment has to grow, if it grows. But then, this economic survey interestingly talks about the banking sector and the kind of problems which the banking sector is facing. Huge NPAs, we have seen those things. So, where is if manufacturing sector has to improve, there has to be good, the banking sectors will have to be financing them. There is a problem there.
Absolutely, there is a problem that's in fact been pointed out in the survey as well. Net bank credit actually declined last year.
Absolutely.
So, if you're talking about organized sector manufacturing output, it fundamentally runs on bank credit, right? And if there is a decline there, the implications for output growth are very obvious.
Right. The economic survey talks of what it calls as double financial repression.
Yes. yeah. So there is a constraint. What has also happened is that the situation, in terms of deposit mobilization for the banks has also changed very rapidly. What happened was that due to high inflation, basically savers were getting a negative real rate of return. And that has impacted, the quantum of, private savings with the banking sector. That actually declined again last year. Quantum of bank deposits.
Yeah, the savings has been a problem.
Domestic
Survey
savings,
talks about
domestic physical savings have declined.
Right.
So you had a sort of moderation in inflation only in the recent few months.
Right.
Before that, you had persistent high inflation for a very long and sustained period. And that's taken a toll in a number of ways, and all of which sort of add up to impacts on the banking sector one way or the other. You add other factors like, the rise in NPAs, which is really limiting their ability to free up capital. What is an NPA? It means a loan which has stopped performing, in the sense that he's repaying neither interest nor capital. And if the banks don't get that money back, that much of capital gets locked.
Right.
So that's really the big problem.
And that's the big problem, and that is something which the finance minister needs to tackle, and we will have to see how he will tackle it. Bhanumurthy, are you there? Okay. Bhanumurthy,
yes. Yeah.
Okay, the question now is that, one of the things which the economic survey talks about is, private investment should be the engine of long-term growth. It says private investment should be. But at the same time, it's very interesting. It also says,
yes.
In another place, it also says that expectation that private sector will drive investments needs to be moderated. So they're talking both the things.
Yes. Yes, I think there are some kind of inconsistency in the economic survey. But overall, if I understand it correctly, it's very clear that in the short term, the economic survey, recommends for higher public investment so that you will have a crowding in impact on the private investments. But ultimately, in the long term, I think survey recommends for private investment driven growth. So that is very consistent with overall fiscal consolidation that we are talking about, where the public investment would crowd in private investment in the long term. So there is no inconsistency in this, particularly when you separate this strategy from short term to long term.
Okay. Devendra Sharma, one of the things when they talk about agriculture, one of the things which they're talking about is national market for agricultural commodities, and they say that mental barrier which is there for creation of choice for farmers, they're saying that marketing infrastructure by private sector. This is the theme as far as the agriculture is concerned. Agriculture sector is concerned. This is the theme, seems to be the theme of the economic survey, that more private sector should come in as far as marketing infrastructure for agriculture is concerned, and there has to be a national market. There's to be some kind of a national market for agricultural commodities.
You know, this was also said in the previous year's economic survey, so I'm not surprised. I think the people who have written this economic survey have no idea what agriculture looks like in this country. And that, having said that, let me say very clearly that the effort of the government is to do away with the minimum support price that the farmers get, although only 8% farmers get the benefit of minimum support price. The argument is that, you know, let us leave it to the markets. Markets will decide what is a better price. Farmers will have a choice. So then they can, you know, gain because middleman goes away and so on. So the farmer's income will go up and so on. We have heard it all. But the tragedy is that 8% farmers, just 8% farmers are the ones who benefit from MSP. 92% are already dependent on the market. If market was doing so well for the farmers, I would have no reason to believe why farmers should be committing suicide, why farmers want to quit agriculture, why 58% farmers go to bed hungry every night. Now, unfortunately, the people who have written this survey have, as I said earlier, want even the people who are better off, let's say relatively better off in Punjab and Haryana or the Green Revolution areas, to go the Bihar way. Bihar doesn't have the APMC Act since 2007. Now, they want to make every state withdraw that APMC, which means the Punjab farmers will also become Bihar farmers in the years to come. Now, I think if that is what this economic survey aims at, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the people who write these economic surveys. And I think there's a need for a debate on that particular issue.
No, I think that they are talking of some kind of a Karnataka model when it comes to the APMC. What do you think of that? What is this Karnataka model they're talking about?
See, let me tell you, whether it's Karnataka, whether it's Punjab, APMC is also there in Punjab. Now they are trying to modify. They have passed this amendment also, which they are saying that, you know, as far as the fruits and vegetables are concerned, they've taken them out. Now, in the case of wheat and rice, which is the most important area, they are trying to withdraw procurement. You know, and that is what is happening. In Karnataka also, there is a lot of pressure, I understand, to also withdraw the APMC Act in Karnataka. Now, what they actually want to do is to uniform the pattern, create a uniform market in the country where APMC goes away, then you leave it to the private players to operate. The point I'm trying to make is, if this was so wonderful, then the 92% which is already in the market arena of the farming community, they should have done remarkably well. It hasn't happened here. It hasn't happened in America. It hasn't happened in Europe. I think that's where the planners have to really look at. Farmers in Europe, farmers in America survive on subsidies. They get direct income support, massive support from the state. Otherwise, they would be in crisis also like India.
Okay. I think you raised the important question of subsidies. Srinivasan, subsidies. You're talking 4.2% of the GDP. They're talking is subsidies of 3.5 lakh crores.
Yes, essentially.
And what is the intention behind it? How is the economic survey telling the government why this is going just too beyond control? So do something about it.
Essentially, the economic survey, every government has used the economic survey to float a few balloons about the direction in which it would like to go. Subsidies are certainly reaching an unsustainable level. You know, there isn't any this thing. If you look at agriculture, the agriculture budget is about 30,000 crores. The fertilizer subsidy is 2 lakh, crores or more. So, there is, it's completely skewed everything. We are not, the problem is not with subsidies. The problem is in the way the subsidy mechanisms are structured right now. Who the real beneficiaries are.
That's what they're talking about, this JAM, a new term. They've come out with a new term today, saying that, Jan Dhan Yojana and then Aadhaar
essentially,
card and
what
mobile,
is this? This is essentially a strong endorsement for direct benefit transfer.
Right.
What they're saying is that you have a bank account, you have a UID, which sort of identifies the person, and you have a means of linkage through the mobile. So you offer, all transfers, banking services through the mobile connection. And between the three of them, you can essentially eliminate the intervening layers, which constitutes most of the government, by the way. If you look at how the budget, which everybody is going to talk about tomorrow, how that budget money actually reaches the end recipient, most of it is in transmission. Okay? So that's really the issue. I think that particularly in view of the developments relating to the land ordinance and others, I think this is going to stay in the wish list area. I don't think that, major tinkering will be done with the subsidies in this budget.
Okay.
But it certainly is an issue which needs to be addressed.
Santosh? No, we are running out of time. Last words to you. What do you expect the finance minister to take away from this economic survey? What do you expect him to do tomorrow?
Well, I hope, for goodness sake, that he does something about subsidies, because as Raghavan was rightly pointing out,
Srinivasan. Srinivasan.
Raghavan
Srinivasan.
Raghavan Srinivasan. You've got 2 lakh crores worth, nearly 2 lakh crores worth of agricultural subsidies and 30,000 crores being allocated to agriculture. This is outrageous, and it doesn't help the farmer. If subsidies were to be cut, we can reallocate. What we need is reallocation towards public investment in agriculture. That's what we need, so as to get agriculture.
So that's one thing. What else?
Yields up. Well,
as far as employment is concerned, what do you expect what lessons do you expect the finance minister to take from the survey?
I expect a lot happening on the inverted duty structure as far as manufacturing is concerned, in textiles, in cement, in aluminium, in steel, which are sectors which have been decimated as a result of inverted duties, which have hurt manufacturing in our country, and I hope that gets changed across the board. If it doesn't, then Make in India is going to fall flat in its face.
Okay. Bhanumurthy? What do you expect the finance minister to take away from this, and what do you expect What do you expect to see tomorrow in his budget?
Well, I think there are many things that the finance minister can take from here, particularly in terms of providing incentives to the overall Make in India campaign. But my own thing is that we need to see how the finance minister is going to, take this 14th Finance Commission recommendations, and at the same time continue to have these allocations on central sponsored schemes and achieve the 3.6% fiscal deficit target as recommended by the 14th Finance Commission. Yeah. That is going to be more challenging, but I guess since they are actually targeting higher growth and also higher revenues, they may be close to achieving the 3.6%.
Okay. Devendra, what do you expect the finance minister to do? You don't seem to have too much expectations from him.
Well, I think... I think what I don't expect the finance minister to do tomorrow is to really clamp down on the corporate subsidies. It is the corporate subsidies which are bleeding the country's economy. When we say 2 lakh crore is the subsidy for agriculture, food security and so on, I think let's look at the subsidies which goes to corporate. The Delhi airport spread over 4,900 acres got a subsidy of 1.6 lakh crore by way of land price. Just one airport. Nobody has ever talked whether that subsidy was required or not. So if you look at the tax benefits, again 36 lakh crore in the last 10 years. I think that's a kind of a wasteful subsidy that we have seen in this country. Unless that is cut down, I don't think the country's economy will ever come on the track.
Devendra, we did not touch on food security or pet subject. They're talking it has crossed 1 lakh crores this year. There seems to be a concern there. Do you expect any cut in that?
Well, I think rationalization of subsidies is definitely welcome. But I am saying, as I said, because if you cut down on food subsidies, you are actually trying to say that, you're following the same pattern which Europe is following of austerity measures. Greece, we have seen, has recently voted against it. And if you are trying to put that in India, I think the consequences should be well known.
Okay. I think on that note, we need to end. We completely run out of time, but we just have a few hours before we will know what the finance minister has to offer to this country. So this is all for today, but tomorrow, the whole day from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the night, we will be live going through discussing the budget and analyzing it. Please keep watching. We'll come back from tomorrow at 8 a.m.